A mother in Dallas understands why her 9-year-old daughter cries before every piano lesson, only when she reviews. Alone at 2:17 a.m., the 36 minutes of recording hidden in the office of the teacher, a beloved man in the neighborhood. What she sees in his hands, so close to the girl's hands, makes her heart freeze and leaves her breathless, while her daughter sleeps in the next room, not imagining anything that her mother has just discovered. The discovery of that early morning would change everything forever. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back a few weeks, when none of this seemed possible and when life was still following a course that seemed safe and predictable. Laura Miller, 41, has always been the kind of mother who puts her daughter first in everything. Since separating from her husband 4 years ago, she has worked hard as a cashier at a Kroger supermarket right there in Arlington, a quiet suburb of Metro Dallas, Texas. Life is not easy. There is never enough money at the end of the month. But Laura makes a point of giving the best to Emma, her only daughter, who has just turned 9. Emma is that kind of child that everyone loves. Sweet, polite, shy, with a discreet smile that lights up any room. She has always been passionate about music, especially the sound of the piano. Ever since she was a little girl, she was mesmerized when she heard those soft melodies, and Laura knew that if she could, she would do anything to give her daughter the chance to learn to play that instrument for real. The opportunity appeared through an advertisement on the bulletin board of the Baptist church they attend on Sundays. Daniel Harris, a private piano teacher, offered lessons at home with affordable prices and flexible schedules. He was known in the neighborhood, always friendly, always wearing a light-colored dress shirt and well-pressed pants, with a wide and confident smile. Mothers commented among themselves that he was a treasure, a patient and devoted man who had a special way with children. Daniel's house was just a 10-minute drive away on a tree-lined residential street, with low, exposed brick houses and manicured gardens where neighbors greeted each other and children played on the sidewalk until the sun went down. When Laura took Emma to her first class, she felt an immediate reassurance. Daniel greeted her at the door with that warm smile, shook her hand firmly, and bent down to greet Emma, saying that she had the look of someone who was born for music. Emma was delighted. In this video, you'll discover how one mother trusted her maternal instinct even when everyone said she was overreacting. You'll see how small signs, which most would ignore, became the key to saving your daughter. You'll understand how Emma's silent crying before school, the strange smells in the room, and Daniel's way of closing the door slowly set off an alarm inside Laura, until the night the hidden camera revealed something no mother wants to see. Courage and determination can change everything in a matter of hours. Every detail here is based on true events. Every word you hear carries the weight of a truth that many families prefer not to see, but that needs to be told to protect other children. If you've made it this far, it's because real history interests you. Help this content reach more people. Leave the like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. The first few weeks of school were like a dream for Emma. She would come home excited, telling her that she had learned a new note, that Daniel had praised the way she positioned her fingers, that he said she had a special and rare talent. Laura felt relieved and happy to be able to provide that for her daughter. The routine quickly set in. Every Thursday at 5 in the afternoon, Laura would rush out of work, pick Emma up from school, and drive down the same wide street, past the same red brick church, the same convenience store on the corner, until she reached Daniel's house. He was always waiting at the door with that ready smile and the usual phrase, "Don't worry, she's in good hands." The house inside was simple but organized. The music room was in the back. A small room with walls lined with acoustic foam, an upright piano leaning against the wall, and a bookshelf full of sheet music. There was a characteristic smell in that space, a mixture of old wood, varnish, and something sweet that Laura could not identify. Daniel always closed the door slowly, with almost exaggerated care, saying that it was so as not to disturb Emma's concentration, so that she could completely immerse herself in the music without external distractions. Laura never questioned it. After all, it made sense. She herself thought that concentration was important for learning. Mornings in Arlington were always the same. Laura woke up early, prepared simple coffee in the small kitchen, with the smell of fresh coffee filling the air, the bread in the toaster, the sound of the school bus passing by on the street. Emma played simple melodies on the cheap keyboard that Laura had bought at a second-hand store, while her mother fixed the girl's uniform, combed her long brown hair, and checked her backpack to make sure nothing was missing. Those moments were precious. Laura looked at her daughter and felt her chest tight with gratitude and love. After everything she had been through with the divorce, with the tight bills, with the sleepless nights, seeing Emma happy was all she needed. But it was in the 5th class that something changed. Laura came home after dropping Emma off at class, and as she folded her clean clothes in the room, she noticed that Emma had forgotten her coat in her school bag. When he went to pick up his daughter an hour later, he noticed that she was wearing the coat, but there was something different. The smell. A strong smell of coffee and masculine perfume impregnated in the fabric. Laura held her coat in her hands, brought her face closer, and felt a small tightness in her chest that she couldn't explain. Emma was quietly in the back seat of the car, looking out the window, with a distant expression that Laura didn't recognize. "Am I exaggerating?" he thought. Maybe he only borrowed the coat because the room was cold, but the grip continued, like an invisible weight on the heart. Over the course of 4 weeks, the routine settled like clockwork. Every Thursday at 5 in the afternoon, the same path, the same streets, the same smile of Daniel at the door. Laura began to notice small details that had previously gone unnoticed. The music room was always too dim for a clear Texas afternoon. The curtains were heavy, of a thick fabric that blocked almost all external light. The smell of male deodorant was very strong, almost suffocating, mixed with that aroma of old wood that seemed impregnated on the walls. And Daniel had a particular way of closing the door, slowly, carefully, as if he were protecting something precious inside. In the 5th class, before leaving home, Laura found Emma sitting on the kitchen bench, teary-eyed, squeezing the strap of her backpack tightly. The girl looked at her mother and whispered, almost voiceless, "Mommy, my stomach hurts. I don't want to go today." Laura felt her heart leap. He approached, knelt in front of his daughter, and held his cold little hands. "What's wrong, my love? Are you really feeling sick?" Emma blinked quickly, forced a small smile, and said, "I'm kidding, it's just nervous. It must be because today I'm going to learn a new song." The explanation seemed reasonable, but something in Emma's eyes didn't match. There was fear there, real fear. Inside Daniel's house, when Laura came in to drop Emma off, she felt the heavy atmosphere in a way she had never felt before. The light was even lower, almost dim light. Daniel smiled as always, but Laura noticed that he closed the door faster this time, almost pushing softly, as if in a hurry. She stood in the hallway for a few seconds, listening to the muffled sound of the first notes of the piano, and felt a strange urge to go back, to open that door and get in. But he did nothing. He just went back to the car, his heart tight and his mind full of questions he couldn't answer. Back home, Laura washed the dishes while hot water ran down her hands and steam rose up to her face. The thoughts did not stop. Maybe it's just shyness. Maybe I'm exaggerating. He's so beloved in the church. Everyone trusts him. The other mothers speak so highly of him. Is it just me who is seeing a problem where there is none? She tried to convince herself that she was being paranoid, that the divorce had left its mark and that she now saw danger everywhere. After all, she had promised herself, after they separated, that she would never raise Emma in an environment of fear. The girl needed opportunities. She needed someone who would take care of her talent for music, who would encourage that rare gift. But then a memory invaded Laura's mind, like a bolt of lightning. The night before, She had passed by Emma's room and heard her daughter whispering to herself, hugging the pillow, her legs curled. "Thursday. No. Thursday, no." The voice was low, almost inaudible, as if Emma was saying a desperate prayer that Thursday would not come. Laura stood in the doorway, cold, but did not enter. She thought it was just tiredness, that the girl was dreaming. Now, with her hands dipped in the hot water of the sink, that memory came back with full force, and Laura felt her stomach turn. Over the next few weeks, Emma began to change small habits, subtly but steadily. He put the cheap keyboard in the closet, covered with an old sheet, and didn't touch it anymore. He stopped talking about music at the table during dinner, diverting the subject whenever Laura asked how the class had been. When Daniel's car passed by on a Saturday or Sunday, Emma pretended to be concentrating on her homework, staring at her notebook. But Laura saw the girl's body tense, her shoulders raised, her breath shorter. Before 3 classes in a row, Emma cried in the bathroom. Laura heard the shower on, which was strange because the girl had already taken a shower in the morning. When Emma left, her eyes were red and swollen. Laura asked what had happened, and Emma replied too quickly, "It's just shampoo, Mommy. It burned in my eye." But as she got closer, Laura saw that her daughter squeezed the hem of her own shirt tightly, wrapping the fabric between her fingers as if she needed to hold something to keep from collapsing. It was a silent cry for help, without words, but screaming for those who knew how to look. In the car, on the way to Daniel's house, Emma fiddled with the bracelet of colored elastic bands she had made with her mother on a Sunday afternoon. He would turn the bracelet on his wrist, pull the elastic bands, let go, repeat the movement several times. He breathed too deeply, as if preparing for something he hates but doesn't know how to avoid. Laura watched in the rearview mirror, heartbroken, not knowing what to do. Should I cancel classes? Does Emma just need a break? But what if I'm taking away an important opportunity from her? Doubts consumed her. Laura decided to arrive early at the end of one of the classes. He parked the car 2 houses earlier, turned off the engine and watched the window of the music room. Only a crack of yellowish light escaped through the heavy curtain. She heard, in the distance, a few loose piano notes, then a muffled male laugh, and then an all-too-long silence. The piano stopped playing, but the lesson was not yet over. What will be happening in that interval, Laura thought, feeling a shiver go up her spine. He stood there, motionless, with his hands squeezing the steering wheel, waiting. When Daniel finally opened the door, Laura noticed that it took him a few seconds longer than usual to unlock. He heard the sound of the key turning slowly, then a noise of chain being taken away. Why was the door locked from the inside? Emma left with tense shoulders, her backpack heavy on her back, but when she saw her mother waiting, she straightened up immediately and rehearsed a smile that did not reach her eyes. Laura opened the car door, and Emma walked in silently, not saying a word about the class. At night, in the small room with the worn sofa and a checkered blanket thrown over the backrest, Laura prepared hot chocolate for the 2 of them. The sweet aroma filled the room, and she called Emma to sit next to her. The girl came slowly, holding the hot mug between her small hands, looking at the rising steam. Laura waited a few seconds, took a deep breath and asked, in the calmest voice she could, "Daughter, do you really like Mr. Daniel?" Emma shrunk her feet under her body, stared at the chocolate steam, and replied too quickly, "He's cool, Mommy. He only takes my hand a lot to fix the position of the fingers. He says that it is normal, that every teacher does this." And then he changed the subject immediately, talking about math class, about group work, about anything other than piano lessons. He didn't look into his mother's eyes once during the conversation. When she went to sleep, Emma asked for something she hadn't asked for in years. "Mom, leave the hallway light on?" Laura felt a lump in her throat but agreed. When saying goodnight, Emma held her mother's arm for a few seconds longer, squeezing tightly as if to say something, but at the last moment she gave up and let go. Laura stood in the bedroom doorway, staring at her daughter huddled under the blanket, and felt like she was missing something precious: trust, security, peace. The following Saturday, during a community picnic in a Dallas park, Laura tried to seek support. The smell of barbecue on the grill, the sound of children running across the grass, the laughter of the surrounding families, everything seemed so normal, so safe. Laura approached Susan, another mom in the neighborhood, who was always friendly and open. They were sitting at a picnic table, watching their children play, when Laura mustered up the courage and commented, trying to sound casual, "Susan, you know the piano teacher Daniel, right? Emma is a little strange with the classes. Sometimes he cries before he goes. Do you think this is normal?" Susan laughed lightly, took a sip of the juice, and replied calmly, "Oh, Laura, that's how a child is. They are afraid of making mistakes, of disappointing. Daniel is great. He teaches at least 15 students here in the neighborhood. I've never heard anything wrong about him. In fact, the pastor of our church always speaks very well of him. He says that he is a man of faith, dedicated, who even does volunteer work with young people. I don't think you need to worry." Laura nodded, forced a smile and thanked her, but returned home with an even bigger lump in her throat. Is it just me watching this? Am I creating a problem in my head? But the image of Emma shivering in the car seat, tightening the rubber band, crying in the bathroom with the shower on, did not leave her mind. That was not normal. Laura knew deep in her heart that something was deeply wrong, and if no one else saw it, then she would have to see it herself. I would have to act alone. After an almost sleepless night, hearing the distant noise of freight trains cutting through the city and seeing the light from the streetlights come through the cracks in the shutter, Laura made a silent decision while Emma was still sleeping. I'll know what happens in that room, whatever the cost. I can no longer ignore the signs. I can no longer rely only on the word of others. I need proof. I need to see it with my own eyes. The next day, with her hands shaking and her heart racing, Laura walked into a large electronics store and bought a small, discreet camera hidden in a desk clock. He spent the whole afternoon at home, testing the angle in his own room, adjusting the position, checking if the recording was clear, if the audio captured the voices. She looked at the mirror at the entrance and saw the deep, dark circles, her tired face, her eyes red from crying so much hidden. She whispered to herself, like an intimate vow, "If I'm wrong, that's okay. I'm sorry only to myself. But if I'm right, my daughter never goes through this again. Never again." The following Thursday, Laura arrived a few minutes early at Daniel's house, carrying the new watch in her purse. His heart was beating so hard that it felt like it was going to come out of his mouth. She rehearsed the apology several times in her head. Upon entering, he feigned concern about working hours and asked to use the bathroom. Daniel waved his hand, indicating the corridor. Laura walked slowly, taking in every detail. Graduation photos on the wall, framed diplomas, the smell of cleaning product too strong, as if he had spent the whole morning cleaning everything. When she returned from the bathroom, Laura stopped at the door of the music room, smiled and said, trying to look natural, "Wow, this room is so cozy. You know, I brought a new watch that I bought. I think it would help Emma to better control her study time. Can I leave it here on top of the sideboard?" Daniel looked at his watch, quickly examined it, and replied with that wide smile, "Of course, organization is everything in music. You can leave it there." Laura positioned the clock carefully, facing the bench where Emma always sat, and left the room with wobbly legs, feeling a drop of cold sweat run down her back. During that class, Laura couldn't concentrate on anything. At the supermarket, he missed the change of 3 customers in a row, dropped a box of cereal on the floor, and had to take a deep breath in the warehouse to contain the urge to run back to Daniel's house. With each passing minute, I imagined the music room, the sound of the piano, Emma's hands on the keys. The clock camera stopped on the sideboard, recording everything while she, Mother, was away, helpless, waiting. When she finally parked in front of the house at the end of class, she noticed that the curtain was even more closed than before. There was no crack of light. Daniel opened the door slowly, and Emma came out with a pale face, her lips pursed. Without saying a word, she got into the car and whispered, "Can we go straight home, Mom?" Laura looked at her daughter in the rearview mirror and saw that Emma hadn't taken off her coat, despite the heat of the Texan evening, despite the sun still high in the sky. That night, after Emma fell asleep hugging the shabby teddy bear, Laura waited until she was sure the house was completely silent. He took out his old laptop, plugged in his camera clock, and sat down at the kitchen table. Only the cold light of the screen illuminated the environment. The clock on the wall read 2:17 in the morning. Laura took a deep breath, pressed play, and started watching. The first scenes were normal. Daniel adjusting the stool, playing some notes, smiling at Emma, praising the posture. But then he got up, walked to the door, and locked it inside. Laura felt her heart race. Why lock? He returned, stood behind Emma, and turned off some of the light, leaving the room almost in dim light. Emma looked back, startled, and he said something that Laura couldn't hear properly, but that made the girl lower her head and look at the keyboard again. Then Daniel approached from behind, wrapping his arms around Emma's small body, placing his hands on her hands. He stood there, standing there, not playing a note, just holding the girl's hands, pressing his fingers against the muted keys. Time seemed frozen, seconds that seemed like hours. Emma tried to pull her arms away, but he held on tighter. He whispered something in her ear, so low that the camera almost didn't catch it, but Laura saw her daughter's face clearly. Pure fear, wide eyes, lips trembling. Laura paused the video. The chair creaked as she rose sharply, recoiling as if she had been punched in the stomach. He put his hand to his mouth to muffle a scream, so as not to wake Emma. The tears began to flow uncontrollably, hot, desperate. Oh my God. Oh my God. I was right. She was right all along. And no one believed me. No one saw it. Thoughts exploded in my mind like fireworks. How many girls passed through here? How many times has this happened? If I had listened to Emma the first time, the first tear, the first refusal, I would have avoided this class today. The guilt fell on Laura like an unbearable, crushing weight, which made her bend her body and sit on the cold kitchen floor, hugging her knees. She went back to her laptop, recorded the screen with her own phone, saved it in 3 different places, and spent the rest of the night there, sitting on the floor, waiting for the sun to rise to act, to do justice, to protect her daughter and all the other girls who were still in danger. If this revelation is arousing in you a deep curiosity about what really happened, comment right now, "I want more stories," and please leave your like on this video. Nothing in this story happened by chance. What you are discovering here may be the missing piece to understand everything. Stay until the end, as the most surprising moment is yet to come. A mother in Dallas understands why her 9-year-old daughter cries before every piano lesson, only when she reviews, alone at 2:17 a.m., the 36 minutes of recording hidden in the office of the teacher, a beloved man in the neighborhood. What she sees in his hands, so close to the girl's hands, makes her heart freeze and leaves her breathless, while her daughter sleeps in the next room, not imagining anything that her mother has just discovered. The cold light of the laptop illuminates her face, marked by tears that begin to fall, when she realizes that every suspicion, every shiver, every strange sensation she has felt in the last few weeks was justified. What was recorded there was unbelievable proof of a hidden truth that would destroy the trust of an entire community and save the lives of several children. But to understand how we got here, how a single mother managed to discover something that no one else had the courage or willingness to see, we need to go back a few weeks when Laura Miller's life still seemed to follow a safe, albeit difficult, path. Laura, 41, works as a cashier at the Kroger supermarket in Arlington, a quiet suburb of the Dallas metropolitan area, Texas. Since divorcing 4 years ago, she has lived exclusively for Emma, her only daughter, who just turned 9. Life as a single mother has never been easy. Money is always counted, bills arrive before paychecks, and every penny needs to be thought twice before it is spent. But Laura never complained. For her, seeing Emma happy, healthy, and safe is all that matters. Emma is a sweet girl with a shy personality who prefers to stay at home, drawing or listening to music, than playing in the street with other children. From a very young age, she showed a special passion for the sound of the piano. Whenever they passed by an instrument store or when some classical music was played on the car radio, Emma would stop to listen, her eyes shining with enchantment. Laura knew she couldn't afford a real piano, but she made sure to save for months to gift her daughter a used, simple but functional keyboard. Seeing Emma playing the first notes, even out of tune, was one of the greatest joys of her life. The opportunity to transform that love for music into something bigger appeared unexpectedly. On the bulletin board of the Baptist church they attend every Sunday, there was a simple yellow pamphlet advertising private piano lessons at affordable prices. The teacher was Daniel Harris, a respected man in the neighborhood, known for his dedication to students and for his volunteer work with young people in the community. Laura wrote down the phone, called that same afternoon, and scheduled a conversation. When she met Daniel for the first time, she felt an immediate tranquility. He was polite, always dressed in a light-colored dress shirt and well-pressed pants, with a wide and confident smile that conveyed security. His house was on a tree-lined street, with low brick houses and manicured gardens, where neighbors greeted each other by name and children played on the sidewalks until nightfall. Everything in that place breathed normality, peace, and confidence. In this video, you'll discover how one mother trusted her maternal instinct, even when everyone around said she was overreacting, that she was seeing trouble where none existed. You'll see how small signs, those details that most people ignore or dismiss as nonsense, became the key to saving not only your daughter, but possibly other children who were in danger without anyone knowing. You will follow every step of this silent investigation, every moment of doubt, every second of fear, and every brave decision that Laura made, even trembling, even though she thought she could be going crazy. Because courage and determination can change everything in a matter of hours. Every detail here is based on true events. Every tear, every sigh, every suspicious look has the weight of a truth that many families prefer not to see, but that needs to be told out loud to protect those who have no voice. If you've made it this far, it's because real history interests you. Help this content reach more people. Leave the like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. Mornings in Arlington always followed the same quiet, predictable rhythm. Laura woke up early, before the alarm went off, and prepared simple coffee in the small kitchen of the rented house where they lived. The smell of fresh coffee wafted through the rooms as the bread toasted in the old toaster she had received from her mother years ago. Through the window, you could see the yellow school bus passing slowly down the street, stopping at every corner to pick up the children waiting with backpacks on their backs. Emma woke up shortly after, rubbing her eyes while still sleepy, and went straight to the living room, where the cheap keyboard was leaning against the wall. Before she even drank coffee, she played some simple melodies, those children's songs she had taught herself, trying to imitate the sound she heard in the videos on the internet. Laura stopped what she was doing just to observe. She arranged the girls' school uniform, combed her long brown hair carefully, checked her backpack to make sure nothing was missing, but always with one eye on her daughter, with a heart full of pride and love. When classes finally started with Daniel, everything seemed too perfect to be true. He greeted Emma at the door of the house with that wide smile, greeted Laura with a firm handshake, and always said the same phrase, "Don't worry, she is in good hands." The music room was at the back of the house, a small room with walls lined with grey acoustic foam, a dark wood upright piano leaning against the wall, and a bookshelf full of sheet music arranged in order of difficulty. There was also a distinctive smell to the space, a mixture of aged wood, varnish, and something sweet that Laura could never quite identify, but would become all too familiar as time went on. Daniel made a point of closing the door to the room during classes. He said that it was essential for concentration, so that Emma could completely immerse herself in the music without external distractions, without noises from the street or television. Laura never questioned it. It seemed reasonable. It even looked professional. The first classes were charming. Emma was returning home radiant, telling with excitement every novelty. She had learned a new scale. She had played an entire song without missing a note. Daniel had praised her posture when sitting on the bench. He had said that she had a special, rare talent which few children possessed. Laura listened to everything with her heart overflowing with happiness. She was finally managing to give something good to her daughter, something that her ex-husband never bothered to provide. Music was bringing light into Emma's life, and that was all a mother could wish for. The routine quickly settled in, like clockwork. Every Thursday at 5 in the afternoon, Laura would rush out of the grocery store as soon as her shift was over, pick Emma up from school, and drive down the same wide street, passing the same landmarks. The red brick Baptist church on the corner, with the parking lot always full on Sundays. The convenience store, where they sometimes stopped to buy a juice or a chocolate bar. The traffic light almost always turned red, forcing Laura to wait while she drummed her fingers on the steering wheel, anxious not to be late. Daniel always waited at the door. She always wore the same style of clothing, dress shirt in light tones, beige or light blue, dark pants well ironed, clean shoes. He had a meticulous, organized manner which gave the impression of someone serious and dedicated. The mothers of the neighborhood commented among themselves in church meetings or in the aisles of the supermarket that he was a blessing to the community. A single man, dedicated to teaching, who charged fair prices and who really cared about the development of students. Some said he had studied music at a university in the north of the country. Others said he taught free classes to underprivileged children on Saturdays. His reputation was impeccable, untouchable. And that was precisely why, when the first signs appeared, no one wanted to believe that something could be wrong. It was after the 4th class that Laura noticed something strange for the first time, but so subtle that she almost let it go. Emma returned to the car in silence, unlike the other times, without the usual excitement. She got into the back seat, pulled on her seatbelt, and stared out the window, too quiet. Laura tried to start a conversation, asking how the class had been, if she had learned new music, but Emma replied with monosyllables, yes, no. It was cool. When they got home, and Laura went to put her daughter's backpack away, she smelled a strong smell of coffee and masculine perfume impregnated in Emma's coat. He held the fabric between his hands, brought his face closer, and took a deep breath, trying to understand. Did he borrow the coat because the room was cold? Did Emma spill coffee on herself and he helped clean it up? The explanations seemed plausible, but something inside Laura, an ancient and primal instinct that every mother carries, felt a small tightness in her chest. It wasn't pain, it wasn't fear yet. It was just a strange feeling, as if something wasn't completely right, but without being able to identify what. Over the next 4 weeks, the routine remained the same, but the details began to change almost imperceptibly. Every Thursday, at 5 in the afternoon, the same street, the same route, the same smile of Daniel at the door. But now Laura was paying attention to things she had previously ignored. The music room always had too low a light. Even on a clear Texas afternoon, with the sun still high in the sky, the light inside that room seemed dim, almost dim. The curtains were heavy, of a thick fabric that blocked almost all natural light. The smell of male deodorant was very strong, almost suffocating, as if Daniel was using an exaggerated amount or as if he was trying to hide another smell underneath. And there was also that particular way he closed the door, slowly, with almost exaggerated care, turning the handle gently and pushing until he heard the soft click of the door snapping into place. Laura began to count in her mind. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds just to close a door. Why so much delay? Why so much care? It was in the 5th class that everything began to fall apart for good, even though Laura was not yet fully aware of it. That Thursday, before leaving the house, she found Emma sitting on the kitchen bench, completely motionless, her eyes teary and her hands squeezing the strap of her backpack so tightly that her fingers were white. Laura felt her heart jump inside her chest. He approached slowly, knelt in front of his daughter and held his cold little hands. "What's wrong, my love? Are you okay?" Emma blinked several times, trying to hold back her tears, and whispered in a trembling voice, "Mummy, my stomach hurts." "I don't want to go to class today." Laura felt a chill run down her spine. "Is she really sick? Did you eat something spoiled at school?" He put his hand on the girl's forehead, trying to feel if there was a fever, but the temperature was normal. "Emma, if you're feeling sick, we don't have to go. I called Daniel and unscheduled." But then, abruptly, as if she had realized she had said too much, Emma forced a small, quick smile, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes, and said, "I'm kidding, Mommy. It's just nervous. It must be because today I'm going to learn a new, more difficult song." The explanation was reasonable. Children get nervous about new things, about challenges, about the pressure to do everything right. But something in Emma's eyes didn't match. There was fear there, real deep fear, which made the girl hold her breath and bite her lower lip hard. Laura wanted to insist. She wanted to hold her daughter in her arms and say that they didn't have to go if she didn't want to. But Emma had already gotten up from the seat, grabbed her backpack, and walked to the door, waiting. The moment had passed. The opportunity to talk had closed. And Laura, not sure what to do, just took the car keys and followed her daughter. Inside Daniel's house, when Laura came in to drop Emma off, the feeling of heaviness in the air was almost physical. The light was even lower than usual, just a table lamp lit in the corner of the music room, casting long shadows on the walls. Daniel smiled as always. But this time, Laura realized that he closed the door faster, almost pushing softly, without the delicacy of before, as if in a hurry, as if not wanting anyone to see what is inside. Laura stood in the hallway for a few seconds, listening to the muffled sound of the first notes of the piano beginning to play. He felt a strange and urgent desire to go back, to open that door without asking permission and enter. But he did nothing. He just went back to the car, with his heart tight and his mind full of questions that he couldn't formulate properly, let alone answer. Back home, Laura tried to distract herself by washing the lunch dishes she had left in the sink. Hot water ran down her hands, steam rose to her face, but her mind was far away, trapped in that music room, that closed door, that strong smell of deodorant mixed with old wood. Thoughts ran over each other, trying to find a logical, rational explanation that would calm the tightness in my chest. Maybe it's just shyness. Emma has always been shy. She has always had a hard time letting go in front of other people. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe divorce left marks on me, and now I see danger everywhere, even where there is none. He is so beloved in the church. Everyone trusts him. The other mothers speak so well. They say that their children love the classes. Is it just me who is seeing problems where there is none? Laura tried to convince herself. After all, she had promised herself, after the marriage ended, that she would never raise Emma in an environment of fear, distrust, paranoia. The girl needed opportunities. She needed good people around. She needed someone who would take care of her talent for music, who would encourage that rare and beautiful gift. Daniel seemed to be that person. Everyone said he was. Why would she alone be seeing something different? But then, as she rinsed the last plate and put it on the colander, a memory invaded Laura's mind like lightning slicing through the dark sky. The night before, she had passed by Emma's room around 11 o'clock at night when she went to sleep. The door was ajar, and she heard her daughter whispering to herself, hugging the pillow, her legs curled up in the fetal position. "Thursday, no. Thursday, no. Thursday, no." Her voice was low, almost inaudible, as if Emma was saying a desperate prayer, a silent request that the day of class never come. Laura had stood in the doorway, frozen, but she didn't get in. He thought that the girl was dreaming, talking in her sleep, or that she was just tired and complaining about the obligations of the week. He didn't give it importance. But now, with his hand still dipped in the hot water of the sink and his heart racing inside his chest, that memory came back with overwhelming force. Not Thursday. The words echoed in her mind, repeated, insistent, like an alarm that had sounded but that she had ignored. Laura turned off the tap, dried her hands on the tea towel, and sat down in the kitchen chair, feeling her legs weak. My God, what am I missing? What is happening in front of my eyes that I am not able to see? If this revelation is arousing in you a deep curiosity about what really happened, comment right now, "I want more stories," and please leave your like on this video. Over the next few weeks, Emma began to change more clearly, more visibly, and this time Laura could no longer ignore it. The girl put the cheap keyboard away in the bedroom closet, covered with an old sheet, and did not touch it again. When Laura asked why she wasn't practicing at home anymore, Emma would make vague excuses. "I'm tired, I have a lot of homework, I'll practice later." But the after never came. At the table during dinner, Emma stopped talking about music. Before, it was her favorite subject. She talked excitedly about the scales she was learning, about the songs she wanted to play when she got better. Now, he diverted the subject whenever Laura asked how the class had been. She changed the subject quickly, talking about school, about a friend, about anything other than the piano or Daniel. And there was something even more disturbing. When Daniel's car drove down the street on a Saturday or Sunday, Emma would pretend to be concentrating on something else. He stared at his homework notebook, even if he wasn't writing anything, or fiddled with the old cell phone Laura had given him as a gift, sliding his finger across the screen without really seeing what was there. But Laura noticed. She noticed how her daughter's body was tense, how her shoulders rose slightly, how her breathing became shorter and more controlled, as if Emma was holding back, forcing herself not to react, not to show the fear she felt. Before 3 classes in a row, Emma cried in the bathroom. Laura heard the shower being turned on, which was strange because the girl had already taken a shower in the morning. He stayed in the living room paying attention and realized that the noise of the water was just a curtain of sound. Beneath the noise of the shower, she could hear muffled sobs, that suppressed cry of someone who doesn't want to be discovered. When Emma finally came out of the bathroom, her eyes were red and swollen, the tip of her nose flushed. Laura approached immediately, holding her daughter's face in her hands. "My love, you were crying. What happened? Tell me." But Emma looked away, pulled her face back and replied too quickly, "It's just shampoo, Mommy. It burned in my eye. It's over." Laura couldn't believe it. How could it be shampoo if the girl's hair was dry? But Emma had already left. She had already gone to the bedroom to close her backpack. She had already locked herself behind that invisible wall that was building between the two of them. Laura stood in the hallway, feeling her chest tighten, feeling her breathing fail, but not knowing what to do, not knowing how to break that wall of silence that her daughter was building. As he got closer, he saw that Emma was squeezing the hem of her own shirt tightly, wrapping the fabric between her small fingers, pulling, twisting, as if she needed to hold on to something tight so it wouldn't collapse completely. It was a silent cry for help, without words, but screaming for those who knew how to look, and Laura was beginning to learn how to really look. In the car, on the way to Daniel's house, Emma developed a ritual. She fiddled with the bracelet of colored elastic bands that she had made together with her mother on a quiet Sunday afternoon, when they were still laughing together and making plans for the future. He would turn the bracelet on his thin wrist, pull the elastics until they stretched, let go, repeat the movement over and over again as a compulsive gesture, as a way to release the tension that was growing inside him. He breathed too deeply, filling his lungs with air and releasing slowly, like someone preparing to dive into icy water, like someone preparing for something he hates deeply but doesn't know how to avoid. Laura watched in the rearview mirror, her heart broken into small pieces, not knowing what to say, not knowing if she should cancel classes, if she should insist on the conversation, if she should respect her daughter's silence. Doubts consumed her, day and night, without rest. But what happened in the next few hours would destroy all the certainties she had. Laura decided she needed to see for herself what was happening. He could no longer rely only on the words of others, on empty assurances, on Daniel's impeccable reputation. I needed something concrete. The following Thursday, he arrived early at the end of class. He parked the car 2 houses before Daniel's house, turned off the engine and stood there watching. The street was silent, only the distant sound of children playing in some yard and the barking of a dog far away. The window of the music room was visible from there, but only a crack of yellowish light escaped through the heavy curtain, that thick curtain that blocked out almost everything. Laura rolled down the window of the car a little and listened. He heard in the distance some loose piano notes, a scale going up, down, repeating. And then, suddenly, a muffled male laugh. It was not a light laugh of joy or fun. It was a low, contained, almost intimate laugh. And then came the silence. A silence that is too long. The piano had stopped playing, but the lesson was not yet over. Laura looked at the clock on the dashboard of the car. There were still 15 minutes left before the official end time. What will be happening in that interval? Why did the piano stop? What are they doing inside, in the dark, with the door locked? Laura felt a shiver go up her spine, a chill that started at the base of her neck and down her back. He squeezed the steering wheel so hard that his finger joints turned white. She wanted to get out of the car, run to the door, knock until someone answered, but she was paralyzed. What if I'm wrong? What if I get in there and there's nothing wrong? I'm going to look crazy. They will say that I am a paranoid mother, that I am seeing problems where there is none. Daniel can even sue for invasion of privacy, for defamation. I can lose custody of my daughter. The minutes dragged on like hours. Finally, Laura heard the noise of the door being opened, but there was something different. It took Daniel a few seconds longer than usual to unlock. He heard the sound of the key turning slowly in the lock, then a metallic noise of chain being taken away, then another click. How many locks did that door have? Why did a music room inside a residential house need 2, 3 locks? Emma left with tense shoulders, her backpack heavy on her back, her face as white as paper. But when she saw her mother waiting there in front, earlier than usual, the girl straightened up immediately, as if she had been caught doing something wrong. He forced a quick smile, that rehearsed smile that didn't even come close to his eyes, and walked to the car. Laura opened the door and Emma went in silently. He put his backpack on the seat next to him, pulled up his seatbelt and stared ahead without saying a word. Laura tried to ask how the class had been, but her voice came out trembling, loaded with an anguish that she could no longer hide. Emma, is everything okay, daughter? Was the class good? Emma nodded, but said nothing. He just kept looking straight ahead, with his hands in his lap, pressed against each other. That night, in the small room with the worn sofa and the checkered blanket thrown over the backrest, Laura decided she needed to try again, in a more direct way. She prepared hot chocolate for both of them, that chocolate that Emma has always loved since she was little, with marshmallows melting on top and a sweet and comforting smell filling the room. She called her daughter to sit next to her on the sofa. Emma came slowly, shuffling her feet, holding the warm mug between her small hands, staring at the steam rising in delicate spirals. Laura waited a few seconds, took a deep breath and asked, trying to keep her voice calm, without sounding accusatory or desperate, "Daughter, I need you to be honest with me. Do you really like Mr. Daniel? Do you feel good in his classes? Emma shrunk her feet under her body, became even smaller on the sofa, and continued looking at the chocolate vapor without looking into her mother's eyes. She answered too quickly, with that haste of someone who wants to close an uncomfortable subject. He's cool, Mom. But sometimes he takes my hand a lot to fix the position of his fingers on the piano. He says that it is normal, that every teacher does this, that it is the only way to teach properly. Laura felt her heart leap. Take it by the hand. The words echoed in her mind, loaded with a new weight, a meaning she hadn't realized before. How long does he hold your hand, Emma? Does he get very close to you? But Emma had already changed the subject, talking quickly about math class, about a group work she needed to do, about anything other than the piano, other than Daniel, other than that music room with the door locked and the light always too low. He didn't look into his mother's eyes once during the entire conversation. He kept his gaze fixed on the mug, on the sofa, on the wall, anywhere other than Laura's face. And that, more than any word, said it all. When she went to sleep, Emma made a request she hadn't made in years, since she was very little. "Mommy, leave the hallway light on, please. Don't delete it." Laura felt a huge lump form in her throat, but she agreed. "Of course, my love, I leave it on all night if you want." When she said goodnight, as she leaned over to kiss her daughter's forehead, Emma held her mother's arm for a few seconds longer, squeezing tightly, desperately, as if she wanted to say something very important, as if she wanted to ask for help. But at the last moment, she gave up and let go. Laura stood in the bedroom doorway, staring at her daughter huddled under the blanket, and felt like she was missing something precious and urgent. Trust, security, innocence, and perhaps, if he didn't act soon, his own daughter. If you're here so far, it's because this story is really moving you. What follows will show the exact moment when everything changed. The moment when Laura decided that she could no longer wait, that she could no longer trust the comforting words of others. Therefore, at the end of this video, we will reveal the complete outcome with details that few know, with the entire truth that was discovered that morning. Stay with me until the end, because what you discover can save a child you know. The following Saturday, during the community's annual picnic in Dallas's Central Park, Laura tried to seek support, tried to find someone who would validate her concerns, who would say she wasn't crazy, that she was right to be suspicious. The park was full of families. The smell of barbecue on the grill mixed with the aroma of freshly cut grass. Children ran around the open area, screaming and laughing, playing frisbee and flying colorful kites. Parents chatted in groups, drinking soda and beer, commenting on the previous weekend's football game. Everything seemed so normal, so safe, so far from the anguish that consumed Laura inside. She approached Susan, another mom from the neighborhood who was always friendly and open. Susan had 2 children, a 12-year-old boy and an 8-year-old girl, both of Daniel's students at some point. They were sitting at a wooden picnic table watching their children play when Laura mustered up all the courage she had and commented, trying to sound casual, as if it were just a silly question. "Susan, you know the piano teacher Daniel Harris well, right? His children have already had classes with him. Emma is a little strange with the classes. Sometimes he cries before he goes. He says that his stomach hurts. He knows how it is. Do you think this is normal? Did your children also look like this?" Susan took a sip of orange juice, wiped her mouth with a paper napkin, and laughed lightly, in that calm way of someone who sees no problem. "Oh, Laura, that's how children are. They are afraid of making mistakes, of disappointing the teacher, of not being able to play properly. It's performance anxiety, you know, totally normal. Daniel is great. He teaches at least 15 students here in the neighborhood, maybe even more. I never heard anything wrong about him, on the contrary. In fact, the pastor of our church always speaks very well of him in the meetings. He says that he is a man of faith, dedicated, who even does volunteer work with needy young people on Saturday mornings. He teaches music for free to those who cannot afford it. I don't think you need to worry. Emma will get used to it. It's just a phase. Laura nodded, forced a smile she didn't feel, thanked him for the advice, and returned to the car with an even bigger lump in her throat than before. He sat behind the wheel, but did not start the engine. She stood there, her hands shaking, feeling the world collapse around her. Is it just me watching this? Am I creating a giant problem in my head, imagining terrible things that don't exist? Maybe I need therapy. Maybe the divorce made me paranoid, too suspicious, unable to trust anyone. But then, like lightning cutting through the confusion, Emma's image came back in full force, her daughter shivering in the car seat, squeezing the rubber band in desperation, crying in the bathroom with the shower on to muffle the sound, whispering "fifth no, fifth not" in the darkness of the room. That was not imagination. That was real. It was happening right in front of his eyes, and no one else was watching. No one else cared. No one believed it anymore. If no one is going to help me, then I'm going to have to do it myself. The decision formed in Laura's mind as a hard and unshakable certainty. It didn't matter what others thought. It didn't matter if they called her crazy, exaggerated, overprotective mother. What mattered was Emma. What mattered was to find out the truth with hard evidence before it was too late. After a sleepless night, lying in bed with her eyes open, staring at the dark ceiling, listening to the distant noise of freight trains cutting through the city and the sound of cars passing by on the road in the distance, Laura made the most important decision of her life. As soon as the sun began to clear the horizon, with Emma still asleep in the next room, hugging the shabby teddy bear, Laura got up, showered, dressed, and left the house. He drove to a large electronics store on the main avenue, one of those huge stores with aisles full of products and attendants in blue uniforms. He walked through the corridors, searching, until he found the home security section. There were cameras of all types and sizes, large professional cameras, small and discreet cameras hidden in common objects. Laura chose a tiny camera hidden inside a digital desk clock, one of those simple clocks that show the time in bright red numbers. He paid in cash, his heart racing and his hands shaking so much that he almost dropped the bills on the floor. Back home with Emma at school, Laura spent the entire afternoon testing the camera. He positioned the clock in various places in the room, adjusting the angle, checking if the recording was clear, if the audio captured the voices clearly, if the battery would last as long as necessary. He watched the test videos on the old laptop, turned up the volume, checked every detail. I needed to make sure it worked perfectly. There could be no margin for error. This would be his only chance to find out the truth. She looked at the mirror in the entrance and saw her tired face, her deep, dark circles, her eyes red from crying hidden in the bathroom so Emma wouldn't see. She whispered to herself as an intimate vow, as a sacred promise, "If I'm wrong, that's okay. I'll apologize only to myself. I'll keep this secret and I'll never doubt it again. But if I'm right, my daughter never goes through this again. Never again, I swear." The following Thursday, with the camera watch in her bag, Laura arrived a few minutes early at Daniel's house. His heart was beating so hard that it felt like it was going to explode. I felt each beat echoing in my ears, in my throat, in my entire chest. His hands were sweating cold. He rehearsed the excuse several times in his head along the way. When he entered, he tried to look natural, smiling, commenting on the traffic, on the heat, on anything banal. After a few seconds, he feigned concern and asked, "Daniel, do you mind if I use the bathroom quickly? I need to run back to work and there won't be time to spend it at home." Daniel waved his hand, indicating the corridor to the left, without suspecting anything. Laura walked slowly down the hallway, watching everything with extra attention. Framed photos on the walls, Daniel receiving a certificate, Daniel with a group of students, Daniel next to the pastor of the church. Hanging diplomas, bachelor's degree in music, certificate of good community behavior. The smell of cleaning product was too strong, almost chemical, as if he had spent the whole morning scrubbing every surface. Laura entered the bathroom, locked the door, took several deep breaths trying to calm her heart. She looked at her own reflection in the mirror and saw fear but also determination. After a few minutes, he flushed, washed his hands, and left. When he returned, he stopped at the door of the music room. Daniel was adjusting some sheet music on the shelf. Laura smiled and said, trying to sound casual, "Wow, this room is so cozy, so well organized. You know, I brought a new watch that I bought this week. I think it would be useful here. It would help Emma to better control her study time, to know when she is halfway through class. These things. Can I leave it here on top of the sideboard?" Daniel looked at his watch, examined it quickly, saw only an ordinary harmless object, and replied with that wide, confident smile, "Of course, no problem. Organization is everything in music. You can leave it right there." Laura positioned the clock with all the care in the world, facing the bench where Emma always sat, with the perfect angle to capture the entire room. He felt his legs wobbly. He felt a drop of cold sweat running down the back of his neck, down his back. He left the room as fast as he could without looking suspicious, said goodbye to Emma with a kiss on the forehead, and left. In the car, he had to hold the steering wheel tightly for his hands to stop shaking. Throughout that class, Laura couldn't concentrate on anything at all. At the supermarket, he made a mistake with the change of 3 customers in a row. He dropped a box of cereal on the floor, and the flakes spread all over the hallway. She had to go to the storage room to take a deep breath, to hold back the tears that threatened to fall, to contain the desperate urge to drop everything and run back to Daniel's house, break down the door and get her daughter back. With each passing minute, he looked at the clock on the wall and imagined the music room, the sound of the piano, Emma's hands on the keys, the camera clock there, standing on the sideboard, silently recording everything while she was away, helpless, waiting. When he finally parked in front of the house at the end of class, he immediately realized that something was different. The curtain of the music room was even more closed than before. There was no crack of light escaping. It was completely dark inside, even with the sun still high in the Texas sky. Daniel opened the door slowly, and Emma came out with a pale face, her lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes glazed over. Without saying a word, she got into the car and whispered, almost voiceless, "Can we go straight home, Mom? Please?" Laura looked at her daughter in the rearview mirror and felt her heart break. Emma had not taken off her coat, despite the sweltering heat of the afternoon, despite the sweat that ran down her forehead. He was hiding inside that oversized coat, as if he wanted to disappear. That night, after Emma had fallen asleep hugging the shabby teddy bear, after checking 3 times that the girl was really asleep, Laura waited until she was absolutely sure that the house was completely silent. He took the camera watch from Emma's bag, where he had asked his daughter to put it away at the end of class, saying he would bring it back next week. He plugged in his old laptop, sat down at the kitchen table, and waited. Only the cold light of the screen illuminated the environment. The clock on the wall read 2:17 in the morning. Laura took a deep breath, her finger trembling over the mouse button, and pressed play. Nothing in this story happened by chance. What you are discovering here may be the missing piece to understand everything, to recognize the signs that may be happening near you, in your family, in your community. Stay until the end, because the most surprising and most important moment is yet to come. What Laura saw in that recording would change everything forever. The first scenes of the video were ordinary, almost monotonous. Daniel adjusting the piano stool, moving it a few inches forward, then backward, until he found the position he considered ideal. Emma sitting, quiet, with her hands in her lap, waiting. He would play a few notes, showing an ascending scale, then a descending scale, and ask Emma to repeat. The girl obeyed, with her small fingers moving over the white and black keys, trying to get the rhythm, the pressure, the sequence right. Daniel smiled, but it was a smile that was too wide, that lasted too long, that fixed on the girl's face in a way that made Laura clench her fists, even though she had not yet seen anything concrete. He praised him too much. "Well done, Emma. You are so special, so talented, so different from the others. The words came out soft, but loaded with something that Laura, watching alone in that dark kitchen, could finally identify. It was not professional admiration. It was something darker, more disturbing, and then at 12 minutes and 30 seconds into the recording, everything changed. Daniel got up from the stool where he was sitting next to Emma, walked to the door of the living room and locked it from the inside. Laura felt her stomach turn. Why lock? Why does a piano lesson need a locked door? Emma looked back, frightened, and asked in a thin, hesitant voice, "Mister, Daniel, why did you lock the door?" He replied in that calm, almost fatherly voice that Laura had heard so many times before. "It's so that no one gets in our way, dear. For you to concentrate better. It's going to be our special class today." But there was something in the way he said it special, something in the tone, in the way he dragged the word, that made Laura feel a shiver run through her whole body. Daniel returned to the piano, but instead of sitting on the stool next to Emma, he stood. He walked to the switch on the wall and turned off the main light, leaving only a small desk lamp lit in the corner. The room was almost in dim light, with long shadows dancing on the walls lined with acoustic foam. Emma turned around again, her eyes wide, and Laura saw in her daughter's face something she had never seen so clearly before. Pure fear, no disguise, no protection. "Mr. Daniel, why did you turn off the light?" The girl's voice was trembling now, broken, on the verge of crying. He replied, already positioning himself behind her, "It's better this way, Emma, more intimate, closer. You will feel the music for real." Laura clasped her hands against her mouth, feeling the tears begin to flow. "No, no, no. Please let this not be what I'm thinking. Please." But it was. Daniel approached Emma from behind, so close that his body almost touched the girl's small back. He placed his hands on her hands, wrapping his small fingers with his big fingers, pressing against the keys. He stood there, standing there, without playing a note, without producing any sound, just holding on, just pressing. The silence was deafening. Not even the piano played, not even Emma's breathing was audible. It was as if time had frozen in that horrible moment. Emma tried to pull her hands away, tried to pull her arms back, but Daniel held on tighter. "Don't run away from me, Emma. You need to learn to trust. You need to let the teacher guide you. This is normal. All good students go through this." His voice was low, almost a whisper, but the camera caught every word with cruel clarity. Emma began to tremble. Laura saw her daughter's body shrinking, her shoulders rising, her head lowering, as if she were trying to disappear, trying to protect herself from something inevitable. And then Daniel leaned in even more, bringing his face closer to Emma's neck, and whispered something so low that the camera almost didn't catch it. But Laura turned the volume up to the max and heard, "You're so pretty, Emma. So special. Our little secret, remember? Don't tell anyone." Laura paused the video. The chair creaked loudly as she rose sharply, pushing the table hard. He walked to the sink, rested both hands on the edge, and tried to breathe. But the air did not enter properly. He felt his throat close. He felt his chest tighten, as if he was being crushed inside. She put her hand to her mouth to muffle the scream that wanted to come out, so as not to wake Emma, who slept innocently in the next room, without imagining that her mother was there, in that kitchen, discovering the truth that she had carried alone for weeks. The tears fell uncontrollably, hot, desperate, wetting their faces, dripping on the cold floor. Oh my God, I was right. She was right all along, and no one believed it, nobody wanted to see it. A whirlwind of thoughts exploded in Laura's mind, each one more painful than the last. How come no one saw this? How did no one notice? He teaches 15 students. How many girls have passed through here? How many children suffered the same thing my daughter did? How many mothers left their daughters here, confident, calm, thinking they were doing their best, not knowing what was happening behind that locked door in that dark room, with that music that never played? And the guilt came later, heavy, overwhelming, falling on Laura like an avalanche. If only I had heard Emma the first time. If only I had paid attention when she cried for the first time. If only I had cancelled classes when she asked, when she said her stomach hurt, when she begged not to go. I would have avoided this class today. I would have spared my daughter another day of this hell. But no, I couldn't think like that. Not now. Laura wiped her face with the back of her hand, took several deep breaths, and returned to her chair. He went back to the video, even though every second was torture, because he needed to see everything. I needed to be sure. He needed complete, irrefutable proof, so that no one could doubt, so that no one could say that he was exaggerating, that he was seeing things that did not exist. He pressed play again and watched the rest. She saw Daniel hold Emma's hands for another 2 full minutes, not playing any music, just pressing, caressing his little fingers with his fingers. She saw Emma try to move away again, and he pulled her back. She saw the moment when he finally let go and said, with that smile that now seemed monstrous, "Our special class is over for today. But remember, don't tell anyone. This is our secret. If you tell him, his mother won't believe it. No one will believe it. They will say that you are making up history." Laura paused again. He picked up his cell phone with his hands shaking so much that he almost dropped it. He opened the screen recording app and filmed the entire video from the beginning, making sure everything was saved in 3 different places, on his laptop, on his phone, and in the cloud. I couldn't risk losing that. That was the proof. This was the truth that Emma had tried to communicate in every possible way, but that Laura had taken so long to understand. When she finished saving everything, when she was sure that the evidence was secure, Laura unplugged her camera clock, closed her laptop, and sat there in her kitchen chair, staring into space. The clock on the wall read 3:47 in the morning. There were still a few hours left before the sun rose. Laura could no longer sit still. She got up, walked to the living room, lay down on the cold floor, and stood there, hugging her knees, shivering, crying silently, waiting for the light of day to arrive, waiting for the moment to act, waiting for the opportunity to do justice. Because now there were no more doubts, there was no more room for hesitation. She knew exactly what she needed to do. If you're here, it's because this story deserves to be heard. I believe that what comes next will surprise you even more. It will show the strength that a mother has when she decides to protect her daughter at any cost. Don't leave this video before you find out how it all ended, because every detail matters. Every decision Laura made can teach something vital to you or someone you know. As the sun began to clear the horizon, painting the Dallas sky with orange and pink hues, Laura got up from the floor of the room where she had spent the last few hours. The body was sore, the back locked, the eyes swollen from crying, but the mind was crystalline, focused, determined. He entered Emma's room carefully, watched his daughter sleep soundly, hugging the shabby teddy bear, her hair scattered on the pillow and her face serene. For a few seconds, Laura stood there, just looking, etching that image in her memory. Stolen innocence, trust broken, tainted childhood, but not anymore. Never again. He left Emma asleep and went to take a shower. She needed to be presentable. She needed to look in control, even if inside she was shattered. He put on clean jeans, a simple blouse, tied his hair in a ponytail, and took out his cell phone. He called Sandra, the trusted neighbor who lived 3 houses away, a 60-year-old woman who adored Emma and who always offered to help when needed. "Sandra, sorry to call so early. I need an urgent favor. Can you stay with Emma for a few hours today? I have to solve something very important, and I can't take it with me." The neighbor, still hoarse from sleep, agreed without hesitation. "Of course, dear. You can leave it. Bring her here whenever you want." Laura woke Emma up slowly, caressing the girl's face, whispering that they needed to go to Aunt Sandra's house before school. Emma woke up confused, rubbing her eyes but didn't question. She was used to the unpredictable routine of the single mother who worked variable shifts. They had a quick breakfast, in silence, and Laura took her daughter to Sandra's house. He hugged Emma tightly, kissed her forehead several times and said, looking deep into the girl's eyes, "I love you more than anything in this world, Emma, more than anything, and I will always protect you, always." Emma smiled, not fully understanding, and entered the neighbor's house. Laura got back in the car, put the address of the Arlington police station on the GPS, and drove. The streets were empty at that time, only a few cars of workers who left early for the morning shift. The journey took 15 minutes. When he arrived, he parked in front of the light brick building with the American flag and the Texas flag waving at the entrance. He held the cell phone with the recording as if it were a gun and a shield at the same time. He took 3 deep breaths, wiped away the tears that insisted on coming back, and entered. The police station was almost empty, just a policeman behind the service counter, drinking coffee and fiddling with papers. Laura approached, and the voice came out firmer than she expected. "Good morning. I need to report a crime. Child abuse. I have proof." The officer immediately raised his head, put down his coffee mug, and grabbed a notepad. "Lady's name?" "Laura Miller." "Name of the victim?" "Emma Miller, my daughter, 9 years old." "Name of the suspect?" "Daniel Harris, piano teacher." Laura began to report everything from the beginning, from the first class, through the crying, the changes in behavior, the ignored requests, to the decision to install the hidden camera. And then he showed the video. The policeman watched in silence, his face growing more and more serious, his jaw clenched, his eyes fixed on the small screen of Laura's cell phone. When the video ended, he immediately got up and called a detective. "Detective Ramirez, you need to see this now. It is urgent." The detective was a woman of about 50 years old, grey hair tied in a bun, a harsh but compassionate expression. It specialized in crimes against children. He sat down with Laura in a private room, watched the full video, asked detailed questions, and wrote down every piece of information. "How many times has your daughter taken classes with this man?" "Approximately 10 lessons." "Does he teach other children?" "Yes, several. At least 15 students from the neighborhood." The detective nodded, recording everything, and assured, "We will act immediately. Today. You did the right thing by bringing this here. Many mothers don't have the courage you had." Laura left the police station 2 hours later, exhausted but relieved. Relieved to have done the right thing. Relieved to finally have been heard, believed, validated. He got into the car, but before starting the engine, he decided to pass by Daniel's house. I needed to see. I needed to know if they were already acting. He drove slowly down the tree-lined residential street that once seemed so quiet, so safe. And then he did. 2 police cars parked in front of Daniel's house, the lights flashing red and blue. Neighbors starting to go out on the sidewalks, curious, worried, commenting among themselves. "I wonder what happened. He was so quiet, so polite. I always thought he was a good man." Laura stood in the car, a few houses away, just watching. A strange sense of heavy silence spread across the street that had once seemed so cheerful. Appearances can be deceiving, Laura thought. Appearances are always deceiving. Hours later, in the middle of the afternoon, Laura received a call from Detective Ramirez. "We need you to come back here, if possible. We go to the suspect's residence to execute a search and seizure warrant. Your presence can be important." Laura agreed, picked Emma up at Sandra's house and took her back home, asking the girl to stay there until she returned. He lied, saying that it was a work meeting. He couldn't. He didn't want Emma to see what was about to happen. When Laura arrived at Daniel's house for the second time that day, there was even more movement. In addition to the police cars, there was a forensic investigation van and a group of at least 5 agents. Detective Ramirez was coordinating the operation. Laura stood outside, next to one of the cars, watching. He saw when Daniel tried to leave through the back door, carrying a large and dark backpack, clearly trying to escape without being seen. But he was intercepted by 2 agents who were strategically positioned around the house. I need to leave. I have an urgent appointment, Daniel said, trying to appear calm. But his voice came out shaky, nervous. One of the agents stepped forward and announced in a firm and official voice, "Daniel Harris, we need to talk to you about serious allegations involving piano students. You are being investigated for child abuse. I recommend that you cooperate." Daniel's face lost all color. He turned white as paper, his eyes wide, his mouth open without being able to form words. He looked around, looking for a way out, and then his eyes met Laura's, who was standing a few yards away. His gaze was a mixture of panic, anger, and despair. "That's a misunderstanding," he muttered, his voice now completely broken. "You're destroying my life. You're destroying everything I've built." Laura stepped forward, her hands trembling, but her voice as firm as steel. "You never go near my daughter again. Never touch any child again. I saw it with my own eyes. I have proof. And all the other mothers will know the truth." The agents put handcuffs on Daniel, read his rights, and led him to the car. He tried to resist verbally, repeating that it was all a mistake, that he had never done anything wrong, that he was a respectable man, but no one was listening. Laura watched as he was put in the back seat of the police car, head bowed, hands tied, the life he had built crumbling in a matter of hours. And he felt, for the first time in days, a deep relief. It was not happiness. It was not victory in the traditional sense. It was just the feeling that she had done the right thing, that she had protected her daughter, that she had prevented other children from suffering. As the patrol car drove away, two mothers from the street approached Laura, their faces pale and frightened. One of them was Susan, the same one who had said at the picnic that Laura was exaggerating. His eyes were filled with tears. "Laura, is it true? Did he really do it? My daughter had classes with him for 6 months. My God, my daughter went through this and I didn't know." Laura held Susan's hand and replied, in a calm but pain-laden voice, "I don't know. But now the police will investigate. They will talk to all the children who had classes with him. If your daughter has been through something, she will have the chance to tell her, and it will be heard. It will be believed." The other mother, a younger woman named Amanda, covered her face with her hands and began to cry. "How come we didn't see it? How do we let this happen?" Laura took a deep breath and said, looking at the two of them, "Because he was good at hiding. Because no one wants to believe that someone so respectable can do something so horrible. But now everyone knows, and now all our daughters are safer." For the first time in days, weeks perhaps, Laura felt she wasn't alone. She felt that other mothers understood, that other mothers were waking up to reality, that a protection network was forming. It did not undo the evil that had already been done, but it prevented it from continuing. And that, at that moment, was all that mattered. This story is not for everyone. If you are here, it is because you want to know the truth behind the facts, because you want to understand how a single mother managed to make a difference. Are you ready for the final revelation, to understand the full impact that this courage has had? Laura returned home at dusk, completely exhausted. The body was tired, the mind exhausted, but the heart, for the first time in a long time, was a little lighter. Emma was in the room, drawing quietly, and looked at her mother as she entered. "Mum, is everything okay? You look tired." Laura sat next to her daughter on the couch, pulled her into a tight hug, and held her for long seconds. She needed to feel her daughter's warmth, her breathing, her small body held in her arms. "Everything is fine now, my love. It's okay." But Laura knew that everything was not okay yet, not completely. There was a long way to go. She needed to talk to Emma. She needed to explain what had happened. She needed to make sure the girl understood that nothing that happened was her fault. He waited until after dinner, until Emma had showered and put on her pajamas. Then she sat on the edge of her daughter's bed and held her little hands between hers. "Emma, I need to tell you something important. You will never have classes with Mr. Daniel again." Emma widened her eyes, And for the first time in weeks, Laura saw something resembling relief on her daughter's face. "Never again?" Laura shook her head. "Never again. What he did to you was not right, my love. The way he touched you, the way he held you, wasn't right. And I saw everything. I put a hidden camera in his room to find out the truth, because I knew you were suffering, even though I couldn't tell me with words." Emma began to cry, a deep, liberating cry that came from a very deep place. "He said no one would believe me, Mum. He said it was a secret, that it was special, that everyone went through it." Laura felt her heart break again, but kept her voice steady. "He lied, Emma. He lied to you. What he did is not normal. It's not special. It's wrong. And you didn't have to keep any secrets. I will always believe in you, always. Every word you say, every gesture, every tear. I'll listen. I'll believe it. You are not alone." Emma threw herself into her mother's arms and cried for long minutes, letting go of everything she had held on to for weeks. Laura held her daughter tightly, stroking her hair, whispering words of comfort, promising that everything would be okay, that they would overcome it together. In the following days, Laura sought professional help. She scheduled appointments with a child therapist specializing in trauma, a psychologist recommended by Detective Ramirez herself. Emma began attending the sessions twice a week, in a cozy office with toys, books, and a safe space for her to process everything she had experienced. At first, it was difficult. Emma had nightmares, woke up in the middle of the night screaming, refused to be alone in any room of the house. But little by little, week after week, it began to improve. She began to talk about what had happened, to understand that it wasn't her fault, to rebuild trust in the world around her. Laura also sought therapy for herself. She had to deal with the guilt, with the feeling that she should have acted faster, that she should have protected her daughter from the first sign. The therapist, a kind and patient woman, helped Laura understand that she had done the best she could with the information she had. "You listened to your instinct," the therapist said. "You didn't ignore the signs. You acted. And because of that, her daughter is safe now. Many mothers do not have this courage. You saved your daughter." Meanwhile, the investigation was advancing. The police interviewed all the children who had been taught by Daniel for the past 3 years. They discovered that Emma was not the only victim. There were 4 other girls, all between 8 and 11 years old, who had gone through similar experiences. Some had told their parents, but they were not taken seriously. Others had kept it to themselves, afraid of not being believed, just as Daniel had said would happen. Now, with Laura's recording as evidence, and with the testimonies of all the children, the case against Daniel was solid, irrefutable. The other mothers began to unite. They formed a support group, meeting once a week to talk, to share feelings, to help each other cope with guilt and pain. Susan, who had initially defended Daniel, was devastated. She cried at every meeting, repeating that she would never forgive herself for not believing her own daughter when she tried to speak. Laura held her hand and said, always patiently, "It's no use looking back with guilt. What is useful is to look forward with determination. Our daughters need us strong now. They need us to be present, believing in them, protecting them." Daniel's trial took place 6 months later. It was fast, because the evidence was overwhelming. Laura's recording was presented as the main evidence, along with the testimonies of the other victims and psychological reports that proved the trauma suffered by the children. Daniel tried to defend himself, hired an expensive lawyer who argued that it was all a misunderstanding, a misinterpretation of normal pedagogical gestures. But the jury did not believe it. The recording clearly showed the truth. The testimonies were consistent and detailed. The sentence was harsh, 18 years in prison, with no possibility of parole before serving at least 12. Daniel left the courtroom handcuffed, with his head down, escorted by guards. Laura was there, sitting in the galleries, watching everything. He felt no joy. He felt no revenge. He only felt that justice had been done, that her daughter and the other girls had been validated, accredited, protected. In the months that followed, Laura watched Emma begin to make a real recovery. The girl smiled again, played again, even talked about music again, although now she preferred to sing rather than play the piano. Laura bought a used guitar and found a female teacher, recommended by several mothers in the neighborhood, to teach group classes, never alone. Emma loved it. Music has once again become a source of joy, not fear, and Laura learned to recognize the signs even more sharply. He became vigilant, but not paranoid, protective, but not suffocating. She taught Emma to trust her own voice, to say no when something wasn't right, to seek help whenever she felt uncomfortable. Laura also began speaking at public schools in the Dallas area, speaking to other mothers about warning signs, about the importance of listening to your children, about the courage to investigate even when everyone says you're overreacting. She told her story, showed how small signs can mean great dangers, and encouraged all mothers to trust their maternal instinct. If something inside you is screaming that something is wrong, investigate, Laura said in each lecture. It doesn't matter if other people think you're crazy. It doesn't matter if the suspect is respected, loved, admired. If your child is suffering, you take action. You protect. You fight. The Arlington community changed after Daniel's case. Parents became more attentive, more careful. Schools have implemented stricter policies for background checks on teachers and staff. The church, where Daniel was so praised, made a complete review of the programs with children, ensuring that there would never again be situations of an adult alone with a child in a closed room. And mothers, especially mothers, have formed a stronger safety net. They talked to each other, shared concerns, validated each other. No mother would be called paranoid anymore for wanting to protect her own child. No more children would be ignored when they tried to ask for help. Laura could never hear the sound of a piano without remembering that early morning when she watched the recording, but she learned to live with the memory, to transform pain into purpose. Every time I spoke to a group of mothers, every time I saw someone's eyes widen at the recognition of similar signs in their own homes, I felt that I had done more than just protect Emma. He had protected other children. It had prevented other predators from hiding behind false reputations. He had given voice to those who did not have the courage to speak. Emma grew up knowing that her mother had fought for her. She grew up knowing that her voice mattered, that her discomfort was valid, that she would never, ever have to keep secrets that hurt her. The relationship between mother and daughter has become even stronger, built on a foundation of absolute trust and open communication. They talked about everything, without taboos, without fear. And Laura taught Emma to do the same with other children, to be that friend who listens, who believes, who doesn't judge. Years later, when Emma was 15 and already in high school, she wrote an essay for Portuguese class about courage. He chose to tell his mother's story, of how Laura had trusted her own instinct even when everyone doubted, of how a hidden camera had saved not just one life, but several. The teacher read the essay aloud to the whole class, with Emma's permission, and many students cried. Some sought out Emma afterwards, in private, and told their own stories of abuse, of discomfort, of situations they had never had the courage to talk about. Emma listened to each one, believed every word, and encouraged everyone to seek help, to talk to trusted adults, not to keep secrets that hurt. Laura learned of the essay when the teacher called, emotionally, asking permission to share it with other educators. "Your daughter is amazing," the teacher said, "and so did you. The courage you had changed the lives of many people." Laura thanked her, but thought, as she always thought, it wasn't courage, it was love, it was instinct. It was the inability to ignore the suffering of his own daughter. Any mother would have done the same. But I knew, deep down, that it wasn't true. Many mothers did not. Many mothers ignored the signs, believed the excuses, trusted the reputations, and her daughters continued to suffer in silence. Laura and Emma's story gradually spread throughout the region, not as gossip, but as a lesson. It became an example that trusting the maternal instinct is not paranoia, it is protection. That investigating when something seems wrong is not an exaggeration, it is responsibility. That believing in children, even when the truth is hard to accept, is the only way to keep children safe. And other mothers, inspired by Laura, began to take action as well. They began to ask difficult questions, to observe more closely, to not accept vague explanations. And other children were saved, other predators were exposed, other families were protected. Before we continue, help bring real stories to those who really care. If you want to be part of this mission of protection, awareness, and giving voice to children who cannot speak, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. Each like, each share can mean a child saved, a mother alerted, a protected family. Laura looks back now, so many years later, and clearly sees the path she has traveled. She sees the night when she almost gave up investigating, afraid of being crazy. He sees the moment he bought the hidden camera with his hands shaking. He sees the dawn in which he watched the recording, heartbroken. He sees the day he entered the police station holding his cell phone like a gun. He sees the trial, the sentence, the justice being done, and he sees Emma, now a strong, confident young woman who uses her own story to help others. Every step hurt. Every decision was difficult, but each action saved a life. And that, for Laura, makes it all worth it. The house in Arlington is still the same. Small, modest, with the kitchen where Laura spent that night watching the recording. But now it's filled with laughter, with open conversations, with music that comes from Emma's guitar, and not from a piano that carries bad memories. It is a safe home, built on the certainty that mother and daughter will always be together, will always protect each other, will always believe in each other. And when Emma goes out with friends, when she goes to parties, when she starts dating, Laura is not the mother who forbids, who suffocates, who controls. It is the mother who talks, who listens, who teaches to recognize signs of danger, who gives Emma tools to protect herself. Because Laura knows she can't be everywhere all the time, but you can make sure Emma knows how to defend herself, how to ask for help, how to trust her own instinct. And every Thursday, at the time they used to go to piano lesson, Laura and Emma make it a point to spend time together. Sometimes they watch a movie, sometimes they cook together. Sometimes they just talk about the day, about dreams, about plans for the future. It is a ritual of healing, of reconnection, of transforming a day that was a source of fear into a day that is a source of love. And Emma knows, without anyone needing to say it, that those hours are sacred. They are the reminder that her mother fought for her, that her mother believed her, that your mother will always be there, ready to protect, to listen, to love without conditions. The scar is there. It always will be. It doesn't disappear completely. It doesn't disappear as if nothing had happened. But it heals. It gets smoother over time. And Emma learned that having a scar doesn't mean it's broken. It means having survived. It means to have been strong enough to heal. It means having had someone by your side who held your hand throughout the process. And that's the biggest lesson Laura leaves. No matter what happens, no matter how hard the truth is, being there for your children, believing in them, fighting for them, is what defines a real mother.